WHOT station. As you notice here, there's a sign, big FCC, you know them, they're always around. Got transmitters up here, want to check these out. Not too bad looking, looks alright. Toro. Radio station, don't you think of WKRP in Cincinnati? Nice big building, everything's great. Here's WHOT, nice looking.
You're rolling.
So in between records, you know, you're going to ask your questions and everything.
Okay, great.
You just know when to stop the camera. And Eric's Hideaway. Today our special guest is AC McCullough. AC, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Not bad. How did you get started in the radio field?
How did I get started in radio? This was like something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. Right? I think I was like 9 or 10 years old when I decided I wanted to be in radio. But it was a thing where I had no idea, unlike today where there are a lot of options for a guy or a girl who wants to get into radio or TV, I had no idea how to go about doing it. And it wasn't something that my parents encouraged doing because disc jockeys back when I was a kid had like a bad image, you know. So they always told me, well, maybe you should go to college and get yourself a real job rather than be a disc jockey. But it just so happened I've been very lucky. When I was in the Army, I had an opportunity to work for Armed Forces Radio, take a couple of tests and get some training, and that's where I started at. And when I got out of the Army, I was working for an educational radio station down here in Struthers at KTO Radio, doing a jazz show. When the job came up, the weekend job came up here at HOT, and I figured, what the heck, let me give it a shot. And I got the job, and I've been here for 16 and a half years.
Why did you choose a career in this broadcasting? Did you want to actually do this, or you always felt that as a kid, like you said, or?
I don't know. I think that's really a hard question to answer. People have asked me that before, and I don't know what it is, except that I guess I was no different than any other kid, even today, as much as I spent a lot of time listening to the radio. And I grew up listening to, like some of the old-timers here at HOT, Boots Bell, Johnny Kay, Switchy Kazi, guys like that. And what they did, because I was so into music, what they did just fascinated me. And it just seems that, you know, this is what I wanted to do. Of course, that's been so long ago, I can't go beyond that. It's just that I felt this is what I wanted to do with my life. And it's really strange, because when I was in the 6th grade, as a matter of fact, you probably know him, the superintendent of Warren Schools, Bob Pegues, all right? He was my 6th grade teacher. And every Friday, we used to have talent shows. And I used to, you know, do Elvis Presley and that kind of stuff. And his wife told me, didn't tell me, she wrote in my autograph book, she said, to a man who is someday going to make his living with his voice, you know. And I was 12 years old at the time. And I didn't realize that till, you know, 1970 when I started here that, you know, I don't know how she knew, but it certainly couldn't have been because of my singing, because I couldn't sing with a damn, you know. But it just kind of worked out.
Was it hard finding a job, or do you think it would be hard to find a job if somebody wanted to get into this?
It's very hard trying to find a job at this point, especially in this market, because this market is such where everybody that has the jobs are holding on to the jobs. It's a pretty stable market. The average time for a disc jockey in larger markets is like 2.5 or 3 years staying in any one place. But the rotation in this market, all you got to do is listen to the radio personalities, watch the TV in this area, and you'll see that, one second. AC in the morning, WHOT and Hot FM 101. Got to be at work here by 9 o'clock. It's time to get a move on. Cloudy today. High going to be in the low 40s. You got that? Okay. Anyway, it's the market around here is stable, both for radio and TV. So it's really hard for a person to break into radio or TV in this market. What you're probably going to have to do is go to some small market, heaven only knows where, and you know, you'll be doing news, and you'll be doing sports, and you'll be doing disc jockey work. You might sell, you might sweep the floors, but that's the way most people get started.
Does your work ever interfere with your personal life? Does it get in the way?
No. I'd like to have more time, like say for instance with my wife and my daughter, but the good thing about it is that my wife realizes that the job demands a lot more time than the time I put in on the air. So all the times that I'm out at other places, you know, social functions or at other jobs, she's pretty much, when we got married, she was pretty much aware of my responsibility to the community. So I don't have any hassle whatsoever. We talk about spending more time together, but that's somewhere down the line, it'll happen. But it's no big problem. You know, if I didn't have all the extra stuff to do, I'd probably only be sitting home watching TV anyway. You know, because I'm not a person that likes to go out to bars and stuff like that. That's not my, so my idea of a good time is to have some people over and play Monopoly, that kind of a thing. So, no, it's not a big hassle.
Do you do any other types of jobs outside in the studio here?
Every guy has a responsibility to do commercials. When I get off the air in the morning, I go back to the production room and I do my commercials, whatever it is I have to do. And I also prepare stuff for the next day's show. For instance, if you've been listening, you may have heard President Reagan on, Peter Pan, my movie critic, and characters like that. So that takes preparation time back in the studio. And it depends on what I plan to run, is how much time I put in. Usually I can be out of here by like 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that.
How was it that you were slotted with this drive time? Did you want to do this drive time, or you built yourself up to it?
Morning drive is the single most important time slot of a radio station. And a morning man is what I always wanted to be. A morning man usually has a lot more creative freedom than anybody else. A morning man is probably the most recognized person on a radio station. And it doesn't make any difference where you go, the morning man is more than likely the highest paid personality on the radio station. All of those things taken into consideration, I decided that I wanted to be a morning man. And at this point in time, I couldn't see myself working any other time slot.
Did you work hard to get this drive time?
I
really
think I
wanted it?
Yeah, yeah. I more or less auditioned for it, a trial period, and things worked out good. The ratings became very good, and I've been working mornings now for over 12 years, I think it is. So.
We consider you pretty successful in this area. What would you say the reasons are for this, more or less?
I think part of the reason probably is because I grew up in this area. So I'm familiar with the people, I'm familiar with the attitudes of the people, I'm familiar with everything that goes on in the area. I have ties to the area. So, and people know this, right? When I can talk about, for instance, I graduated from East High School. When I can talk about comings and goings and doings on the East Side and at East High School, and people know that I've been there, they feel that they can relate to me. Because I am involved in a community with so many different organizations, I have my finger on the pulse of the community, and I can talk about things and talk about people that everybody can relate to. And people look at me not as a disc jockey as much as, say, for instance, a friend, a next door neighbor, that kind of a thing. Instead of just a voice on a radio, and I'm an actual person. One second.
You're gonna find somebody like you one of these days. Until then, you know what you gotta do? You gotta get on out of here with that Alley-Cat coat wearing, rubbing shoe and crumb cake I saw you with. Cause you dismissed. That's right. Silly rabbit tricks I made you kids, did you know that? You without me like cornflake without the milk.
AC in the morning, WHOT and Hot FM 101. It's 8:53, 34 degrees. Cloudy today. It's going to be in the low 40s. Bruce is next.
Okay, you could start from when you were in high school, say you're a senior in high school, okay, and you wanted to get into broadcasting. How would you go about doing it? What would you think the best way of doing it is?
Personally, I think the best way is to do it like I did it, and that's to hang out at a radio station. Learn from guys that are actually on the air doing the job, professionals that are actually doing the job. on the job, trial and error. I think that's the best way. Your other options are to go to a broadcasting school. The problem with those is that in most cases they take your $1,800 or your $2,000 and tell you they'll make you a disc jockey in 6 months, and it's not that easy. It doesn't happen that quick. They take your $2,000, give you some very basic training, and then put you out in the job market. I can show anybody with a minimum intelligence how to run all these machines in this board in 20 minutes, okay? How to be a personality and interact with people on a one-on-one basis is something that takes years and years to do, and they can't teach you that at a broadcasting school. Your other option is to go to college and major in broadcasting, journalism, whatever. One second, I've got to cue Bruce on this.
A Boardman ditch yields a murder suspect, and the congressman has a long way for the verdict on his tax trial. Good morning, I'm Bruce Robertson, WHOT News. Cloudy today, high in the low 40s, 35 degrees currently. A Youngstown man faces charges after...
Okay. Where was I at? Is this fashionable enough for your video?
Looks good. Real good.
Where was I at? What was I saying?
Starting
Schools.
Okay.
colleges, majoring.
Your other option is to go to a 4-year college and major in broadcasting, and that's nice because if you decide somewhere along the line that this is not the career for you, you have something to fall back on. One of the problems with a lot of college broadcasting programs is that they're taught by people who haven't been actively involved in the business in a number of years. They're on staff, they're faculty, and that's fine. And they can teach you a lot of theory, but one thing I found out, for instance, when I was down at Youngstown University years ago in broadcasting, was that what they were actually teaching me down there had no relation whatsoever to what I was actually doing on the air every day. And it frustrated me a lot. That's why I dropped out after 2 years. If you go to a good college, Kent State is an excellent, Ohio State, Michigan State, a couple of others, that they have people on staff that are actively involved in the broadcasting community in their areas, then that's probably a very good training ground for you.
How old are you now?
I'm 39, and I'll be 40 in January. I look good at my age.
You look good. You look real good. Real good.
Oh, yeah. About 20, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you would, do you plan on working for HOT for a long time, or do you think you might want to move on to a larger city and work for a bigger area, or is this all you ever really wanted?
Well, here's the deal. There are 2 places that if I got a call from, I would not give a second thought to going to. I'd be gone. One is Columbus, and the other is Toronto. Toronto first, as a matter of fact. But the problem you run is a lot of guys are fascinated by the fact that, moving on to a bigger city and a bigger radio station, you make 4 times as much money, but you have 4 times as many headaches. And to me, the trade-off is not worth it. With my show, I have total creative freedom. There's nobody on the hotline every day telling me I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have done that. When you come to work here, they say, this is the format, here are a few basic rules, do what you have to do to get the numbers, and then they leave you alone. And to me, that's worth a couple of $100s a week. So, as long as that situation remains like that, I'll be here. When the right situation comes along, whether it be Toronto or Columbus, or maybe another city, I don't know, I'll know, and, I'll be gone. But it's not something that I think about every day, and it's not something that I worry about and say, well, I got to get out of here, my career is growing short or something like that. I'm enjoying what I do immensely, and as long as I'm doing that, I'll be here.
What would you say the difference is between those kind of studios and, studio of a smaller area, based upon the larger radio stations? I'm not a station that's a lot more popular compared to a station that isn't. I'm not saying that this isn't popular, but I mean the difference in between.
Probably the working conditions. At radio stations that I know of, even in this area, who aren't as popular as we are, there's a lot of tension because when you're not number one or when you're not in the top 5, there's a lot of, you don't make a lot of money. And the bottom line is that this is a business and you want to make as much money as you possibly can. And, you know, top management says, give us some numbers so we can make some money. So there's a lot of pressure on the jocks on the air. We're comfortably number one. And the only pressure we put on, that's on us, is the pressure we put on ourselves. So that's probably the biggest thing.
What type of benefits are there in this job?
Benefits? You talking like health benefits?
Yeah, like that way around.
It's just like any other place. We have benefits as good as the telephone company, General Motors, you know, all the health plans, the retirement benefits. It's the same kind of deal.
Would you probably consider this job pretty easy in a way, and then hard in another?
I'll address that question in a second.
Upper 40s, 36 degrees. I'm Bruce Robertson, WHOT News. WHOT Campbell, WHOT FM Youngstown, with music and A.C. McCullough.
Okay. A lot of people think that when you're a disc jockey, you come in, you do your 4 hours, you talk a little bit, you play some records, and you're in and you're out of here. A lot of people don't see the preparation that goes on behind the scenes. Except for, like today is a Saturday, so there's not a whole lot for me to do except, you know, to do stuff like this. But during the week, Monday through Friday, I have to edit my sports. You know, sports doesn't come over the wire written for me to read on the air. I have to edit my sports. I read the Plain Dealer, USA Today, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette every morning in order to try to cull things from these that I can use on the air during the day, so that if somebody calls me about something or Bruce uses something on the air, I'm aware of what's going on. I have various services, broadcasting services that I subscribe to that feed me information, whether it be jokes or calendars or whatever, that I have to try to weave in and out of the show. I have to, all this I have to weave in with the phone calls. I spend a lot of time on the phone during the week, trying to get ideas and phone calls and input from the people that listen to me. That has to be done. And you usually find that there's a lot to do and not a whole lot of time to do it in. I usually walk out of the studio here with stuff that I was never able to use. And that's because I've done my preparation time. There are some guys that walk into the studio and all they have is a pencil and a pair of headphones, and that's their preparation. Those guys don't stick around for too long. And you can usually listen to them and tell that's what kind of jocks they are. But if you want to be good at what you are, it's just like any other job, you have to prepare for your job. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I could get here at 5 o'clock in the morning, an hour before I get on the air, and still have stuff to do when I went on at 6. There's that much stuff to cover before you go on the air.
Have you ever made a mistake on the air?
We all make mistakes. But I learned early in my career, somebody told me that the mark of a professional is how well you cover your tracks. It's as simple as that. I make mistakes all the time. You on this tape right here, you saw me make mistakes. Did you get when I let the record run out? That was before you started the tape, right?
Yeah, it was before,
okay.
yeah.
The record ran out. You know, there was
dead air.
dead air. That
Dead air.
is the worst. I mean, a disc jockey have dead air. I mean, it's your heart goes in your throat. All right. So I make mistakes all the time, but you cover your mistakes, and the nice thing is people don't hold them against you.
Is there mistakes that could threaten your job, possibly? Things maybe because what you say.
Well, if you're a professional, you don't say things that'll,
right.
you know, that'll threaten your job. AC in the morning, WHOT and Hot FM 101. It's 9:03. Okay.
Break here a few minutes, take a cup of coffee maybe, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Back. And, see, AC, you were talking about how, you know, it's hard to get in this market, and to, you know, to get a job, in this, doing this, what you want to do. But would you encourage people to go after that if they wanted to do?
Most certainly. It's a great job. It's not for everybody because there are a lot of frustrations connected with the job. But it's a great job, and one of the nicest things about this job is that I have met people and become friends with people that had I not been in this job, I probably wouldn't have gotten the chance to meet. People that I would count as my friends for the rest of my life. And you can't beat that. I've been exposed to so many different kinds of people and so many different kinds of situations. It's really enriched my life, and that probably is the biggest advantage to doing this job.
Anybody important? I mean,
anybody important? You?
Well, yeah. Beside me.
Besides you, Eric, there's been a sprinkling of stars. You don't remember David Cassidy, do you? From the Partridge Family?
Oh yes, I remember him. Yes, I do.
You know Tiny Tim?
Tiny Tim, the one tiptoe through the tulips?
Yeah. Tiny. I met Tiny Tim. The problem is that when you're in a market like Youngstown, the big stars, if they have the chance to do a promotional visit at a Cleveland or a Pittsburgh, they're going to do a Cleveland or Pittsburgh, and they'll pass the Youngstown by. So you don't find a lot of stars that will come through Youngstown. On my drawer right there, you won't want to take a picture of this, all right? But on my drawer right there, I have a picture of Miss Nude America. You see that right there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. She was sitting right here where you're sitting at almost. Yeah. She's a lot better looking than you.
Oh, come on.
But right here, and she's one of the biggest stars I ever met, in more ways than one, but that's another story. Go
She
ahead.
had clothes on when she was 3 days.
What does that picture have right there?
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
What kind of, say the person who wants to get into broadcasting, what kind of traits would say, who's ever hired, say the station manager, whoever does the hiring, what kind of traits is that person going to look for personality on the air?
Okay. Believe it or not, the thing that is going to make you or break you as a radio personality is your ability to read, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things the first thing I had to do when I came up here to apply for the job is to read a commercial cold without ever having looked at it before. Your ability to read, interpret what you read, and feed it back to your audience in a condensed, like a Reader's Digest, is a very, very important trait. A lot of people think that it's a gift of gab. That's not true, because anybody can have the gift of gab if you prepare. A lot of people think it's a voice. That's not true. There was a time in the past where your voice was very, very important. But people relate to people who talk like they do. And you don't have to have perfect diction, and you don't have a classic radio voice real deep and all that. Those three things probably are the most important things. There are a lot of intangibles that a program director will not be able to see until the guy or the girl actually gets on the air and actually does the job for a while. You can't tell by sitting down and talking to him or from a tape. You just have to let him do the job. You have to go with your gut feeling and hope that he relates to people once he gets on the air.
So in other words, you really don't ad-lib that much when you're on the air?
No. I know it probably would be a boost to my image if I told people, everything is ad-lib, but believe me, if you saw this place during the week when things are normal, I've got notes and newspapers and stuff spread all over the place. I try to make it sound like it's ad-lib, but believe me, it's not.
Yeah, like you and say in the morning, when you're doing sports, the weather, whatever, and you're talking with Bruce, you already know what you're going to say pretty much.
I don't. I
just BS in there.
That is ad-lib to a certain degree. He pulls stuff off the wire. I have stuff over here that I get for some of those services that I talked about earlier, and we'll just pick out stuff. Anything that goes on after we read the basic story itself is ad-lib, but we always know that we're going to, what we're going to talk about going in. One second. AC in the morning, WHOT and Hot FM 101, Saturday morning in the city. How are you? It's 35 degrees.
So actually, Bruce never comes in here. It's always two talking back and forth between the wall there. Okay, let's jump to the FCC. Have FCC, Federal Trade, never mind. Okay, yeah. Have you or the station, they ever had any major problems with the FCC?
No. In the 16 and a half years that I've been here, we have only had an FCC man come through here twice. And once was, well, I think it was about a year ago, and that was the first time in like 6 or 7 years. But it's really funny because when an FCC man is in town, all the radio stations get together and they know he's in town, so they clean up their act before he gets here. You know, so it's like we'll get a call from like the BBW, hey, he's in town, you know, get it together. You know, we'll get our act together by the time he gets here, and we'll call KBN. He's in town, get your act together. So it's really kind of a joke.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows he's here, and everybody knows what he's looking for, so they get all their records straight before he gets here. And we've never had any trouble. We've never been fined or put on warning or notice or anything like that. So it's no problem.
I know we know that the FCC grants the licenses for the station, but do they ever? I mean, do they have to inspect this place to make sure that everything's up to standards to go on the air or anything like that?
To be very honest with you, I'm not really sure how that works because that's something that's taken care of. If I want to buy a radio station, or I want to put a radio station on the air, I have to apply to the FCC for the license, and I'm sure there are certain standards that have to be met. But never having dealt with that, I'm really not sure exactly what they have to go through. I'm sure there's some kind of inspection, not only of the facility but also of the people that are going to be involved in it, so that they know that you're like responsible people and everything. But I'll have to defer that question to somebody else because I'm really not sure.
Now, earlier you talked about how you come in at 5 in the morning and you have your material ready, and and you said you do your commercials and some of the stuff that. You say you got the material, some of your material now from the papers and just reading what's going on. But like that new one, like you have that AC in the morning. Where do you get that kind of material at?
To be very honest with you, I steal a basic idea from other radio stations. I'm a big listener to radio stations from all around the country. I get tapes of other radio stations, other disc jockeys from all over the United States, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'll steal an idea in a second. So I heard a jock in Chicago with a jingle similar to that. So I took it to a friend of mine who has a recording studio, and I let him listen to it. And I says, Chuck, can you duplicate that? And he says, we can try. And his next recording session, that's what they did. And that's what they came up with.
Can you get in any trouble for that?
No.
He would find out, no?
No. AC in the morning, WHOT, and Hots FM 101, 916. Cloudy today, low 40s, low 30s tonight. High going to be in the upper 40s for tomorrow. It's 35 degrees now. Okay.
AC, what about 2 years ago, it was WSRD. How was it that you would broadcast on AM and FM, but then in the mornings you would be on both stations?
Well, the reason we did that was that our AM signal, morning drive, like I told you earlier, is the single most important time slot of the day. If I had been on AM only, most of the people we were trying to reach, we would not have been able to reach because our AM signal is so terribly weak. And there are certain areas of the county, you go from here to Boardman and you can't hear it, all right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick up the maximum number of people that you can. So if you combine, there are a lot of people, still a lot of people, strangely enough, who listen exclusively to AM radio. So if you combine your AM and your FM, which the FCC says you can do a certain portion of the day, then you pick up the people that listen exclusively to AM, you pick up the people who listen exclusively to FM, and you combine those to give yourself the biggest possible audience.
And so back then, did you charge more for your commercials back then when it was going both ways?
No, you don't charge any more. Because the sales pitch is that you're getting a combo deal. You're getting AM and FM for the same price, but you don't charge any more.
Why did WSRD fold?
Money. The problem was that it was losing money. The problem was that kind of format has a very limited audience. It's mostly young, it's mostly male. Demographics, right. So, is a big advertiser, big money advertiser, let's just say States or Barrett Cadillac or something like that. If you own Barrett Cadillac, would you buy radio time on a WSRD, knowing that their audience was primarily young, primarily male, and could not afford a $27,000 Cadillac in the first place. So, taking that in consideration, it died, and it's been all uphill since we changed the format.
I think you made a good decision.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, listen, some of this equipment here, like these tapes here, okay, this is what you play all your music on right here. What, you even have, is this a phonograph right there?
Well, that's a turntable, but
Turntable,
it's not something that we use. They use it exclusively on Sunday morning for like Rick D's and some religious programming. But everything else we do, all these are commercials right here. You have one cart, one commercial per cart. These racks in back here are all records, and they're all oldies from one era or another. So they're marked by categories. The dots or the balls on the record pertain to the tempo of the record and what year it was from, how far back it goes. And then this rack right here is all the current stuff, the top 29 songs. This is why we said earlier, when you talk about top 40, you really can't say top 40 because, as you see, all we have are 29 records on our playlist. And really only the top 22 or 23 are hot records that are in heavy rotation. AC in the morning, WHOT, and Hot FM 101. It's 9:20 in the morning. Temperature is 35 degrees.
Is this your log that you go by?
This is the log right here. This is a commercial log. This tells me, this is made up out in the office out front, tells me what commercials I'm supposed to play and when I'm supposed to play these commercials. This is the 9 o'clock hour. I got an American Express in this slot right here that I'm playing now. And we have the same thing for our records. When I come in the morning, I have a computer sheet. And this computer sheet has nothing but numbers on it. And these numbers correspond to records in the various categories that I have here. So all I do is look at the computer sheet, go into the rack, and pick the rest.
This is for the whole day?
This is for the whole day.
The red's just your hour?
That's just my 4 hours right there.
Yeah. Okay. When you were talking earlier about these tapes here, I know you put them all into that thing right there. How does that work? I mean, they overlap, they seem to, or...
AC in the morning, WHOT and Hot FM 101, 921. What we have are there are 4 tape machines, and we have four pots on the control board here that control the volume on either one of these tape machines. And it's just a matter of putting the record in and starting it. The one thing is, with the commercials, they have cue tones on the commercials, so that you can put a series of commercials in and a record. You start the first one, and it'll go through a cycle. It'll start each one automatically, so that you can go to the bathroom or whatever it is you want to do, and not have to worry.
Not to worry about that dead air.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what is it? Sunday mornings at Rick D's comes on here.
Yeah.
Okay, is that more or less like a network thing where they broadcast from Los Angeles to here, or is it taped and they bring it here? Or you don't know?
No, I know. Let me blow the image here. It comes in on albums, right? It's done out of Los Angeles. Rick D's tapes it in Los Angeles, and everybody that's signed up gets the albums, at the beginning of the week, and you just run the albums on Sunday morning, and he sends along personal IDs for each radio station in the network, so that you make it sound like Rick D's is right here, right now, working exclusively for you. Okay.
When you you said it's personal ID. I hope I don't blow anything for you here, but
Don't ask. I know what you're going to ask me. Don't do that.
Don't ask that
no,
one?
Don't do that. Don't ask. I know what you're going to. Don't do that.
all right, never mind. I won't ask that then. So they just play albums in the mornings.
Right.
Okay, say tomorrow's Sunday, and they'll be playing that Rick D show. When would that have come in? When would that album for tomorrow?
It came in at the beginning of the week.
Well, how did they know that was what was going to be the top 1 and 2 and so forth?
They take it from one of the trade magazines. I think theirs is Cashbox, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm assuming it's the week before. It's really not important, because it'll change a little bit from week to week, and that's the only thing that's important, because there are a lot of people that keep track of that stuff, and it's going to change from week to week. So the fact that it might be a few days behind is really not that important.
Okay. Well, have we missed any questions? Maybe you think you might.
I just want to say this. All right, I want to say this to anybody who's watching this tape right now. This is a pretty ragged building that you've seen so far. All right, it is. Okay, but keep in mind that in a very short while we're going to be moving into state-of-the-art studios with brand new equipment, a brand new building, and it will be a showplace. And I want to invite you guys back when that happens, if only for a few minutes, to take a videotape of the new facilities, so you can see that HOT, the #1 station in this area, you know, we're doing things like they're supposed to be.
Okay, when you say the #1 station in this area, that goes by Arbitron? Or?
Arbitron. We're rated by Arbitron, and we're rated by, I've only been here 16 years. And we're rated by, huh?
Nielsen?
No, Nielsen is TV. We're rated by Arbitron and Birch, right? And Birch is a monthly service. They do it every month. And Arbitron does it quarterly. But in both surveys, we're far and away, you know, #1. There's no competition for us.
#1 in the format is.
We're the #1 station overall, by a slim margin. But the important thing is that every radio station has what they call their target demographics. And in our target demographics, which is like 18 to 34, there is like no competition. We like triple, in some places quadruple, you know, our competition. That's the important thing. When you go to an agency, and one second. AC in the morning, WHOT, and Hot FM 101, it's 9:25. When an agency looks at a radio station that they're going to buy time on, what they want to know is how you're doing in your target demographics. You can be #3 or #4 overall and still be #1 in your target demographics, which is what they're looking at. If you're #1 in women, 18 to 34, doesn't make any difference if you're #10. You know, they'll buy you because those are the demographics that they're looking for.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to ask you, AC. Thanks for letting us interview you, and that's all the time we have today. But watch next week when we interview Dick Clark, and he tells us that he can still rock and roll, but he has a hard time remembering. Don't miss that next week. Thank you for watching, and for Ron, AC, and myself, goodbye, and God bless.